Okay, we're good. Whew, okay, sorry about that. And who has a spare pair of sunglasses? Because I cannot see a thing. It is really bright. And honestly, I could use some heat lamps because I'm freezing. I honestly can't see anything, which is all good. First of all, I just want to say congratulations, React Miami, for selling out. And can we give them a round of applause? In these times of events and conversations, conferences, to be able to sell out, I think is a wonderful thing. So shout outs to the whole team. All right, so let's get things going. Good morning, Dom. For those who, all 5 of you follow me, that's how I like to start my day. But I do want to say good morning, Dom, again, because I'm from Canada, and crossing the border and being here is a blessing. Let me tell you that much. So I was goddamn nervous, I'll be very honest. Anyhow, let's keep it moving. There are 5.5 billion users of the internet on the planet, which is absolutely pretty awesome. That's data from earlier this year in February, and I was kind of like, that's kind of wild. So, but one of the best parts is we have 5.5 billion browser users. And that's definitely a distinction from people who are just online using apps. We are actually having that many people on the browser. But we don't have that many developers. All right, and we definitely will be talking about that. By the way, shout outs to the AV people. I just want to let you know that my clock is not working, but that's totally cool because I have one here. So we're gonna keep moving. Things really got started with one website, and for those who are curious, you can go to this address right here and go check it out. But we actually have 1.2 billion websites right now on the internet, which is phenomenal. And even more phenomenal is the fact that we apparently are deploying 250,000 per day. It's a lot of work right there. Yeah, thank you, the clock is working. And that also means that we actually have to do a lot of debugging, literally a metric ton of debugging and some performance testing, of course. And we're gonna talk about that today. Now, we have a lot of debugging to do, and debugging we did. And some people might remember this form of debugging back in the day, view source. Hand up if you did some of that, if I can actually see you. A little right click to see what was going on under this hood. All right? And then sometime in 1995, late 1995, in fact, we kind of went this way. Ah, yes, console logging. Hands up if you did some of that, because I know I did. All right, a few more of you, that's for sure. Are there any CSS people in the room? Yeah. There are rumors that the Tailwind people were here, so I don't know. But they know what this is all about. Oh, yeah. That red outline, they're like, what is going on here? Why is this red? So a lot of that was happening. But it is 2025, and things are a little different. We are trying to measure things like user experience, completely intangible. It's kind of like, I don't know, I can't touch it, I can't count it, but I know when it's there. So we're trying to sort of work on that, and we're obviously trying to work on performance. And we're going to talk about that for pretty much the rest of this conversation. So I want to introduce everyone, or welcome everyone, to a presentation that I'm calling DevTools and the Performance Tab. The browser DevTools have gone through some significant changes, and we're going to talk about that. So this was like my alternate cover. Is Taylor here? For those of you who caught that one, all 3 of you. But it's all good. So let me introduce myself. My name is Henri. You can find me on all socials under Henri Helvetica. I got this little situation called Command H. Quickly, I'm going to sort of work on what I think is a new in-person experience, but that's a separate conversation. I'm from the greatest city on the planet, which is CA Central 1, YTO 1A, and that's Toronto, Canada. And I'm a bit of a distance runner, so I have this thing called Devs Who Run and Runners in Tech, but again, we'll talk about that a little later. Now, performance is important. We know that. We don't like anything that's too slow. We like things that are pretty fast. We like fast things. We like fast cars. We hate sitting in traffic. But you know, since I'm in Florida, let's talk about fast things, like this person right here, Florida native, Noah Lyles, last year won gold in 100-meter. Let's talk about fast things. Gator graduate, Parker Valby, NCAA champ, multiple records. She's pretty fast too. But, you know, you might sit there and say like, oh, well, Henri, I know you're into performance, I know you're into running, you know, this is like nothing new, whatever, we know you like fast things. Well, these people like fast things too. These are 6 more speakers that are going to see over the next couple of days, and at some point they all are going to talk about a little bit performance, a little bit of fast things, a little bit of like improving rendering and stuff like that. So, you still don't believe me? Okay, that's all right. It's not fake news, though. How about some of the sponsors that are here today? Some of them do like fast things as well. Firebase. They do some work and pull up some CRUX data. Vercel. Just go check out Guillermo's tweets. He's always talking about performance. Sentry. Yes, they do some debugging, but yes, they look after performance as well. Cloudflare. La Reina Rita, is she in the building or is she outside? Cloudflare, oh, there you go. Cloudflare's in the building. They like fast things. And Mux, even though they're our video sponsor, apparently, shout outs. Video, heaviest asset on the internet. To stream video, you have to know how to provide good user experience and make sure things are performant. So they like fast things as well. So, we're going to talk about tooling, developer tooling when it comes to performance, and ultimately, things really got going in 2007 when Firebug was launched, V1. And some people look at that as like the moment they really got into debugging, get into performance. In fact, anyone here familiar with this application called Web Page Test? You know, yeah, a few of you, fantastic. Greatest performance tool on the planet. I used to work there. But it's true. Inspired by Firebug, by the way. Now, I hope this is going to work, but this is Joe Hewitt, the author of Firebug, introducing V1 over at Yahoo in 2007, praying to the gods that the audio works. And my check bounced. So basically what he's saying is Firebug basically exists for 2 reasons. One is to show what's going on your page when it loads, and the other is to show what's going on after it loads. And that was the beginning, ultimately, of debugging, investigative work, because performance ultimately is investigative work. So let's get cracking. For our purpose, we're going to look at Google Chrome, simply because they've been doing a lot of work around performance and their DevTools, and we're basically going to go through that today. So, the performance panel, we would, what is it? Shift Option I, you go in and you start to take a look at some of the information that's out there. And it used to be a little complicated, all right? So they've gone through some changes. I would consider it like wholesale changes ultimately. The performance panel, you're going to hear them call it the landing page at this point as well. So let's take a look. So now, when you do a trace, or actually, ultimately, when you load a page, in this case, we loaded espn.com, and when you go into the landing page right now, it's going to look like this. All right. So it looks a lot different than it used to. We have 3 metrics showing right there, starting with the LCP, which is the largest contentful paint. We also see the CLS, the cumulative layout shift, and we also see the INP, which is interaction to next paint. Now, for those of you who are sort of follow a little bit of performance, those 3, that triumvirate of metrics might sound familiar. For those who don't, I just listed the core web vitals, 3 metrics that are sort of going to give you an idea of how your app is doing, how your page is doing, sort of like its fitness and whatnot. Now, the one thing that I'm going to mention here is if I go back to that page, all 3 of them right there, they have one thing in common. And what's that, Monsieur Brizard, Monsieur Helvetica? Well, these are all lab metrics. Who here is familiar with lab metrics when I say that? All right. What does that mean? Well, lab data is the data that you're loading yourself. You're on your own computer, whether it be like a MacBook Pro or, whatever, Mac Air, or even a Windows computer. And it's your own internet in your house. It could be top-notch. But it's not really what we're looking for in terms of what the user is experiencing. You're also going to see that it's going to be called sometimes synthetic data. All right, so synthetic data and lab data are the same. Now, as I just mentioned, we really want to know what the user is feeling. So you're going to see terms like RUM data come about. RUM, R-U-M, real user monitoring data. This is what the user is experiencing when they're walking down the street, when they're using their mobile device. This is the kind of data that we need to really understand what the user is feeling. You're also going to see it being called field metrics. All right? Again, RUM data, field metrics, the exact same thing. Actually, you're also going to see field data as well. They just like to remix it. So, why is it important? Well, we really want to know what the user is feeling. And guess what? Some of the sponsors are RUM data providers. Firebase, yes. Vercel, yes. Sentry, yes. Cloudflare, yes. They all collect RUM data. So this is legitimate. This is very important. Now, let's get back to the field metrics and the RUM data that I just talked about. Now, in DevTools, if you see at the top right, okay, you could actually collect field data, RUM data, field metrics. Now, this is a zoom in. Obviously, we were looking at espn.com, so you'll put that in. And then, by the way, apologies about the pixelation. I hope it comes out right. It's readable, yes? Awesome, thank you so much. Now, and you can see on the right, you can also determine whether or not you want desktop, you want mobile, or you want both. Now, the important part here as well, the field data, we have the collection period. Over a 28-day period, you can pull out field data from the site that you're working on, all right? And when I do that, I end up with something like this. When I'm back on the landing page, I've opted into getting my field data for espn.com. And what does that mean? So now I can start to compare my lab data, what I'm experiencing, and what the user is experiencing. So as I said, it's investigative work. You can start to figure out like, okay, start to do the math in your head. What do I need to change? What's super important to tackle right away? Okay, so here we saw the LCP. We can see the change between user on the right-hand side and lab on the left. Same with the CLS. You know, our lab data at home is like, oh, my CLS is fine. Pump the brakes. It's actually needs improving. You can see the figure right there because we can see the color change. And same with the IMP, we can see the delta. Now, how do we pull that information out? Well, we did it using CRUX, C-R-U-X, which stands for Chrome User Experience Report. This is a data set where you can pull real user data and get a hand on what's going on with a particular anything, technology, whatever it may be. Now, once again, why is it important? It is to know what the user is experiencing at all times. Here's a quick example. Inter Miami fans here? All right, we got some Inter Miami fans, all right. This is Fabrice Picot, AKA, who is it, Fafa, right? Plays Miami, but he's Haitian, Haiti. So he's got fans in Haiti, but he's got fans in Miami too. But the Miami fans are on their phones, everything's fine. They can load up the site, can figure out what's going on, everything's love. Fans in Miami cannot. They have a completely different experience from the infra that's there. Internet's not amazing, and they're using devices that are not top-notch. How do we know that? Well, we could pull out CRUX data. Now, I was looking at CRUX data a while back, and specifically RUM data, and you might show up, you might see some devices show up on the network that you've never heard of, all right? Now, this is not specifically this example. This is some stuff that I've pulled out in the past. I remember looking at these devices like, what is going on here? I've never heard of these devices, but these are the kind of devices that show up on the network. These are the kind of details that are good to know because you can start to understand what they may be experiencing. That comes from RUM data. By the way, there's actually a community group, a W3C community group for RUM that looks at RUM data, and I could talk about that another time. All right, let's keep it moving. So, man, we can go into the landing page now, and in these environment settings, start to replicate what's going on the network, all right? So you can see the one time, you can start to throttle your network, which is very important because you know, who's got like gigabit internet on their devices in the wild. And you can also slow down the CPU so that it feels like a mobile device while you're doing some testing on your laptop. Now, let's get back to the core vitals real quick. Now, we looked at the LCP a few times, and we're going to look at it again. Now, the LCP is a very interesting metric because it's actually a bit more complicated than people realize. At one point, we kind of figured out that LCP issues at 70% rate were images. So people thought like, oh, you know what? Let me optimize this image and everything should be fine. Unfortunately, not the case. The LCP is actually set up in 4 phases. And these 4 phases were actually discussed by this gentleman by the name of Philip Walton. So they call it the Walton breakdown at times. So what happens is these 4 phases will kind of give you an idea of what exactly is going on, where the bottleneck is. And now, when you hover over that area in the landing page, it'll highlight the 4 phases. And in this case, you can see, hopefully, is that the resource load duration is what really hung things up, almost 6 seconds. These are things that you can discover now in the landing page. Now, you can also do the same in IMP, so I just kind of circled it, something that you can take a look at a little later. LCP source, all right? So again, the challenge, where's the challenge coming from? Let's click through. Let's go back to the LCP, take a look right here. Now, if you actually hover over, there's a little line right there that says LCP element. If you hover over that, it'll actually tell you what the LCP image is. In this case, it was probably the poster image of the video. And if you click on it, it'll take you right to the block of code that is providing the challenge. Now, let's look at some more panel updates. Improved tooltip. Now, you can take a look at the network, and you're like, okay, cool, I see what's going on here. But now, okay, I got that circled. Let me zoom in. You can hover over any resource and get some information. Now, here, I'll start with the CSS resource, and you can see the priority, and you can see some of the duration information. But the point is, we've surfaced that information as soon as possible so you can start to see what is going on. Same here with an image resource. We saw the priority go from low to high, and some more details, and same with some JavaScript. And in this case, we saw that some JavaScript resources were render blocking. These are good things to know while you're doing your debugging. Now, something that's really cool too, annotations. Now, sometimes when you're doing some work and you're like, okay, what's going on with this resource? Okay, so I think I understand it. Well, you want to remember what it is that you were looking at. So now you can actually double click on a resource and leave yourself some notes. And you could come back to it later. And you can start to collect some of these notes, and so you can start to piece some of this puzzle. And now you could also take some resources and again, double click and start to connect them to other parts of the resource loads and say, okay, maybe there's something going on here that I should really remember. And you can see the arrows, you could arbitrarily point them to whatever that you feel is necessary for you to understand. Man, 2 minutes. The best part, some of these annotation and notes, they get collected and they become like little bookmarks where you can click around and be like, okay, cool. And it'll take you back to where you had been looking at the resource to try to figure out what's going on. Now, everyone loves pair programming. Sometimes we could call it pair performance auditing. I don't know, team telemetry, something like that. Well, after you've collected all these notes, and drawn up a whole bunch of stuff, you could actually save the trace and save it without annotations. But by default, the annotations will remain so that you can send that to a coworker. You could send it to Guillermo Rauch, be like, hey, I don't know what's going on here. So whether you post it in Slack, you send it by email, that mean coworker on like Truth Social, I don't know. But the fact is that you can start to collaborate with someone else or a few other people by sending the trace with all the notes that you've added. Now, I also want to talk about improved CLS. This is actually super cool. Now, I was looking at the Inter Miami site for a good example, and I got one. So you'll see right here the CLS, the local lab data was like, this is all right. But the user, the real user data, the field metrics were so. So what did I do? You'll see down below where it says layout shift, if I hover over some of the resources, it'll again highlight the blocks that are problematic. Okay? And we got a couple here. But the best part is once you go into the network now as well, you can see the layout shift, but specifically this timeline, and you see the little diamonds right there. I'm going to show you how cool this part is. It'll show you where the layout shift took place and what actually happened. And here's a short little video. Come on, keep it moving. There we go. So if I hover over that, you can see how the layout shift took place and what was happening. You see the little layout shift with the little diamond right there. Okay, cool. And then if I keep going, the other diamond, and it gives you another idea of how the layout shift took place. So by looking at this animation, you could start to, again, understand what was happening with the CLS. All right, I'm going to close it out. Last few slides here. I got to apologize. So we're going to get into a little pretty like rare part of like development right now that's kind of like bleeding edge. Who remembers this film? Yeah, it's a pretty wild one. Well, How about some DevTools AI? Specifically, AI assistance. All right, let's keep it moving, not too much time to waste. So let's go back to the CLS right here, in that page. You'll see at the bottom it said AI assistance, all right? And you'll see that little beaker next to it because it's in experimental phase. Well, I can actually ask it what was going on my page. You know, in this case, I said like, hey, what's happening with the CLS? And it gave me a full answer, all right? Pretty good answer at that, actually. Now, I could actually also ask, you see by the arrow, how can I fix this CLS? And boom, it does a little bit of thinking. I spared the animation, but it starts to provide some answers. And you can actually see that it provided a code snippet, and you can actually use that code and try it out. All right. So these are some of the changes that are taking place and how they've introduced AI into the solution. Now, what's going to happen is like you're going to have to be signed into Google if you have an account, and you have to opt in, especially now because it's experimental. But you could try it out today. This was Canary, by the way. That's what I usually tend to use. Now, I know this was a bit of a race, so I do want to apologize if I went a little too fast. Question-wise, you can find me in the hallway. But in summary, what I like to say is this. Performance is investigative work. Without a doubt, we don't know it. Sometimes it feels like a crime scene. And the point is to try to have all the information ready in front of you so you can start to make some learned decisions. Instead of having to poke around, finding this, finding that, okay, where's the CLS? Oh, you know what? We're surfacing the information in front of you so you can use it ASAP. So we're all using the browser pretty much every day. The point is to really open another part of the browser and start to pull out this information so you can start to make some better performance determinations, auditing, and improvements. And the last thing I'm going to say is this. As I mentioned, I'm a bit of a runner, and we actually are organizing a 5K/30-minute run, whatever comes first, tomorrow morning for those who want to participate. This is a big deal to me. We talked about developer health earlier this morning. I'm all about that as well. That being said, thank you very much for your time.